Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another ATI Zoom edition. Dan with Brian and Matt. Lot to get to. Let's just dive right in. And what do you say we start with the red-hot Boston Celtics? They are 6-0 now in the postseason. They just beat the Raptors to go up 2-0. They're tipping off in Game 3 about 30 minutes from now as we speak, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so we have to finish this up quick.
So we'll see what happens. We'll see what happens in Game 3, but let's just kind of talk about how the Celtics have looked so far in the postseason. They've been rock solid, and they look like they are a legitimate contender to maybe get to the finals, and who knows, maybe even win the damn thing.
Yeah, Toronto doesn't have a go-to guy. They're a good team. They're a good defensive team. But when they need a bucket, like Siakam, I guess, is their go-to guy, and the Celtics be able to shut him down. So when things get kind of crazy, or, when Tatum gets in foul trouble or something that happens to Jaylen Brown, and Toronto wants to go on a run, they might get a few steals or some breakaways, but they don't have a guy who, like Kawhi Leonard last year, a guy that they can go to in crunch time if they need. A guy like, if you watch some of the other series, you go, oh, wow, like a Jimmy Butler or some of these other guys that were available. But with Kawhi leaving, Toronto never filled that hole. They got Siakam, but he's been inconsistent.
Yeah, and I think Brian and I talked about this last week. The Celtics match up very good. They're a guard-oriented team. So the Celtics, their best asset is their guard defensibility, whether it be with Marcus Smart, whether it be Jaylen Brown, even Tatum can either go big or small defensively, and he's kind of turning into a decent defender. I think it's good going forward. If anyone else needs to take a last-second shot, obviously Tatum's probably first, but a step-back foul line jumper from Kemba is probably the second most guaranteed thing in the entire world. So I think that's huge. This team is rolling right now, and they might lose tonight just because if you win 7 playoff games in a row, you're doing something right. I know we all enjoy the Celtics team, but I don't think any of us are ready to say they're that good yet. But going forward, I don't want to get ahead of myself. I don't see them having any issue beating Toronto, whether it be in 4, 5, 6, 7, whatever. It's the next round that kind of scares me. The Western Conference is one thing, but the next round playing Miami would be scary.
Kelly Olynyk, yeah, you got to worry about him.
Him and Duncan Robinson.
Yeah, I had some time today to watch the NBA TV, and they play the games back to back to back all day from like 7 o'clock on. They play some WNBA stuff, so I found something to do for an hour, and then I got back to some real sports I got to watch, and it was all the guys playing. And what I notice is Miami tries harder, and Milwaukee kind of has this attitude like, hey, like we're supposed to be in the finals, almost like, like Tatum throws his hands up when he doesn't get a foul call. Well, the Bucks do that on every play. And it looks like Miami is they're a better rebounding team. They're playing better as a team. That guy Hero is amazing. He gets a lot of second chance points. And it's just amazing that both of those teams are up, or this 2-0 deficit now, where I think a lot of people thought it was going to be Milwaukee versus Toronto, not Boston fans. And it's the other way around.
And I think you mentioned Tyler Hero. I always go back to it. We were in the car on the way back from Worcester. I think Dan was with us that night from a volleyball game on draft night. And Tyler Hero was 1 pick ahead of Romeo Langford, and as you can see, one versus the other. Can you imagine if Tyler Hero was on the Celtics? But I think this team is they're coming together, and whether it be Marcus Larry Bird Smart coming out, which I want to take this show to take credit for calling him that, because we were doing that back in like February and March, let alone people now. But I think the aspects of this team, it's not just, oh, well, if Jason Tatum doesn't score 30 points, we're screwed. It's, well, Kemba can score 18 and maybe Jaylen will go off. Or then Marcus Smart hits 5 threes in the fourth quarter. It's like, we all talk about you need a guy to win, and we all think the Celtics have that guy. If he's not ready now, he will be in Tatum.
Right.
But I think the team right now is, especially in this bubble tournament format, is proven to be the best.
They're the perfect team right now.
I'm going to say, Brian, they seem like they're really suited for the bubble,
right?
Because they're pretty young, so they can bounce back quick because it's pretty much every other day you're playing. There's not any huge egos, and Brad Stevens has proven himself to be a coach at both levels, college and the pros, who is very good at sort of adjusting to situations. He's a very good situational coach. So they seem like they're built for this situation.
Oh, absolutely. The only guy who's really upset is Gordon Hayward because he has to spend time with his family. He had his game chair set up. He was playing video games. He thought he only had to hang out with his wife for like maybe the night before the baby was born, maybe the day after, just to prove that he actually had a son, you know, and then he could go back to playing basketball. So that poor guy actually has to spend more time with his family. So he's really upset. But they get him back too as well, which I don't think you need him for this series. You might not even need him for Milwaukee, but if you do get to the finals, you're going to need him because you need that because guys get cold, you know, and you need if you have four. I mean, they'd have everybody. They'd have four guys that could legitimately put up 20 points. And I don't know when Hayward comes back if he comes off the bench, but then that makes the bench even better. I like it with Smart in the starting lineup because he's such a great defender. It's a good problem to have. But, like, because they're so young, because they don't have – I think the oldest guy on the team is Wanamaker, and he's 30. They don't have older kids. They don't have, you know, is my kid have to go to high school or middle school because of COVID concerns? You know, these guys are young guys, so there's a lot of stuff they don't have to worry about that some of these older veteran teams have to worry about. And I think because they're in a bubble, there's less distractions for them, where an older player – I mean, no one's going out on this team getting, you know, chicken wings. You know, we don't have to worry about that. But you're right, Dan. I mean, I thought they'd be too old, but I mean, you know, I'm a delusional Celtics fan. But even people like you know, Felger's coming around, Maserati's coming around. Who's the guy with the beard and the glasses on '85? With not Stewart. What's the guy's name there? I can't remember. Yeah, Jim Murray. Jim Murray said that they're going to win the championship the other day, and you know, if he says it, then you know, it must be true. So.
I think the best part about the Celtics team is the emergence of Robert Williams, right? We all know Tice is good. Brian has his little man crush on Poirier for whatever reason. But I think Robert Williams coming in, I was watching game 2 early on when Tice was getting out rebounded. And when Doris Burke is calling for Robert Williams to come to this game, and this guy's played, like 10 games all year and really hasn't looked good. And now he was 5 for 5 or something like that to start the game.
And he hit a jump shot.
Yeah. So, I mean, like, I'm not asking for 5 for 5 hitting jump shots. I'm asking for just good defense, rebounds, and alley-oop plays. But if he can give that to this team, it changes everything to have a legitimate center that doesn't mind just being hustled for 15 minutes a night.
They haven't had a guy like him since Perk, and I mean, even Perk we kind of overrated him, I think. I don't think he was as good as we really thought he was. But, I mean, defensively, if Williams can do 50% of what he did in the first quarter for a season, they're all set. They've got the scorers. They've got a decent bench. They got a great point guard. They got reliable three-point shooting. I guarantee you they're probably the best defensive team in the bubble right now, or one of the top, you know, 2 or 3, you know, I think even before the playoffs started. They get all the pieces they need, and they have a bunch of young guys under low contract control. They're all set. You look at all these other teams. It's like you go, is Giannis going to leave Milwaukee? What's going to happen, you know, with the Clippers? The Lakers, I mean, Davis could technically leave this year if he's an idiot. But the Celtics, they have a nice blueprint, and now they have 3 first-round draft picks where they're just going to draft and stash a bunch of guys, and if they don't work out, it really doesn't matter because the average age of the team, I think, is like 25 right now.
And then meanwhile, before we step away from the NBA, out west, you've got Clippers, Nuggets in one series, and then you've got Lakers, Rockets now. That Rocket Thunder Game 7 got a little dicey last night, and that would have been quite a story if the Thunder had somehow pulled that off, and Chris Paul would have led the Thunder over his former team that traded him. That would have been amazing. I don't know if either of you caught that game, but the Rockets were able to squeeze it out with the block by James Harden in the final seconds. But I don't know if you had any thoughts on that one. They
had 3 chances, Dan, to win that game. I mean, it was tied for a little bit, and then they were down 1. You're right. Chris Paul got blocked. A couple of the other guys got blocked. Chris Paul actually turned the ball over as well, I think, with under a minute to go. Right. But, I mean, you know, Chris Paul has to cry about it, and that's the big story right now. I mean, so, you know, geez, I lost or whatever. But the story for me last night was more that foul call on Jimmy Butler because the game was tied.
Oh,
and then they call a foul, and that's a shitty way to end the game.
Yeah, I think both of those games last night, officiating coming down the stretch, very questionable. Especially the Robinson on Middleton one before that. The Jimmy Butler one, obviously, but yeah, both of them. I think going to the other series, though, that Denver and Utah series for 2 teams that no one cares about unless you're from one of those cities, that was phenomenal watching Jamal Murray and Donovan Mitchell go toe-to-toe every game in and out, both of them dropping 40, 50, 60 points a night. and then laughing about it after because here at a 12 o'clock game, you two go at it 60 apiece, and then you got to go eat lunch together because it's the only place to eat food in the bubble, and it's just
Why did they decide to play defense in Game 7 though? Until hey, let's play defense today. Like, what was that about?
I mean, I think that's just the way the NBA goes. The NBA is
It's Game 7. Oh, so they finally play defense.
Yeah, you in the NBA
This time
nowadays,
it counts. What like an MLB All-Star game?
Well, it's the same thing like with James Harden, right? James Harden plays zero defense throughout his entire career until the one time in a Game 7 it matters, right? And all of a sudden now we're talking about
the only person he can stop is Kim Kardashian.
I mean, sure.
Well, the amazing thing you're talking about, James Harden, he finally played some defense last night. After he had that block, I think the announcer said something like, now no one can ever say anything again about James Harden's defense.
That's all it takes. It only takes one play.
He made one block, okay? Like, we can still criticize his defense because usually he doesn't put any effort into defense.
Hey, Dan Master had more blocks at the high school level than James Harden has his whole career.
I know when basketball players are not trying on defense, okay?
I mean, hell, people remember Tayshaun Prince, and all he had was one chase down block on a 19-year-old LeBron or whatever.
He was a really good defender. He was a consistently really good defender.
Yeah, but I mean, people remember one play. That's all. Yeah. So.
Yep. So that's the NBA story. We'll see what the Celtics do tonight as they are tipping off in about 20 minutes. I'm sure we'll all be watching that. Do you want to do your Bruins rant right now, Matt? Because I didn't a lick of the Bruins, and now they're
Matt. Is the window completely shut? Is the window shut, or is it still open a little bit?
No, because this team still will bring back the majority of the key pieces, right? You still have the perfection line, which I'm gonna just. I'll take like a minute here. We'll just go through everything. Perfection line's coming back. Your depth is still a question. It always has been, always will be, except for the 1 year you won the cup. And that year you had the perfect amount of depth all the way through. The big issues are is Char coming back. He says he's coming back, and then it'll be on a very team-friendly deal. It all depends on how the money works out. The big things are your goalkeeping situation, which was okay for a time being in the playoffs. But I don't think Tuukka ever steps foot on this team again. I don't think Halak steps foot on this team again. I wouldn't. It's going to be some big free agent. The big
Cam
thing
Newton?
maybe. Big thing that pisses me off about this team is they are so lackadaisical in their new philosophy under Cassidy, which has worked. They got over 100 points in the regular season. All 3 years he's been in charge. They're fighting for Stanley Cups. They're fighting for President's trophies, which is great. Except when they can't get the puck out of their own zone and then concede 7 goals. There's 2 simple rules in hockey. Get it over your blue line and over their red line. Those are 2 simple rules. The Bruins did that maybe 10% of the time. The Lightning did it about 90% of the time, and the Lightning won the series.
What changes in the playoffs, Matt? Is just the quality of the opponent? Like what's all of a sudden?
It's the same thing.
Well, now we can't do this,
The Bruins do the same thing in the regular season, but in the regular season, every team half-asses it. So when you have a team in the playoffs, all of a sudden every little thing gets scrutinized and other teams can tighten up the little mistakes. The Bruins just kind of play the same game and think, well, it worked in the regular season, it'll work now. It's kind of like, do you remember the Hawks? What was it? 5 years ago or whatever, when Budenholzer won coach of the year the first time? Everyone's like, oh, the Hawks won 60 games. They're a great team. And then the playoffs, they got smoked. It's kind of that same thing.
Now, do you think Tampa Bay will take the whole thing, or is it going to be a team from the West?
I think it should come between Tampa and Vegas. I want Dallas to win it, but they're trying to blow it against the Colorado. But I think it's between Vegas and Tampa, and that'll be an interesting one. I think Vegas takes it.
All right, that's your hockey minute. I didn't listen to a word of that.
I brought basketball into it. What do you want out of me?
So the NFL is starting a week from tonight. Who do the Chiefs play in the opener?
Texans.
That's right, Chiefs-Texans. That'll be the first game of the season, a week from tonight. And then who do the Patriots open up with? I don't even know that.
The bane of their existence, the Miami Dolphins.
Okay. So obviously the week 1 is gonna be even more unpredictable than usual because no preseason games. And usually week 1 is one of the harder weeks to predict and one of the harder weeks to bet on games because obviously you're coming in fresh. But this is going to be something completely different. No preseason to even base things on. How closely have you guys been following practices? I really haven't. So what are we expecting?
So, yeah, Dan, they cut Sanu today.
Right.
So that's some
But
big
I wasn't
news.
surprised by that because he looked old last year, right?
Yeah, I mean, he looked like shit last year, and then they asked Brady about it, and they said, "Oh, did they bring him in with your input?" And he said, "Well, everybody likes having him around." So you're like, "That's a little surprising." I just heard that earlier coming in. But yeah, I guess in practice he couldn't get any separation from any of the quarterbacks. So they were like, "All right, you've lost not a step, you've lost like 3 steps." So they let him go, and that says a lot considering the other guy because they basically have Edelman, they have N'Keal Harry, and then they get a bunch of maybes. And then as far as the rest of the team, it's like, okay, well, they lost a couple guys because of, I don't know what you ever want to call it, COVID opt-out. So you get them for another year next year, or you spread it out, or whatever you want to do. But they're still the Patriots. They're still in the same division. They're still going to probably win the division. The Bills are a little better every single year, but they're still not better than the Patriots. And you got to somehow get better than the Chiefs and the Ravens. And the only way you do that now, I think, if one of those teams has some injuries. I mean, that's my preseason take. But I mean, who knows? I mean, a lot can happen from now until then.
The thing that pisses me off about the Patriots one, I mean, there's a couple of things. I mean, obviously, trying to make it seem like there's a QB competition, and then the day you announce Cam Newton as the starter, 20 minutes later, you're like, oh, by the way, he's also a captain. Come on. He's not getting voted captain if he was in a quarterback competition. I'm sorry.
Is that a dig against Brady, do you think?
Voting him captain? I don't think so. I think
was Brady ever the captain?
I think Brady was always a captain.
Yeah.
He had a C on his chest and everything?
They didn't. I don't think they ever did that.
For some reason, I thought they had ended a captain.
He had the tattoo as a tramp stamp on his lower back.
Yeah.
I'm not going to ask how Dan knows that he has a tramp stamp. I don't subscribe to that magazine, but I'll take your word.
Those are just the rumors.
That's just the rumor.
But the thing that really bothers me, and it happened last year, Damian Harris was drafted in the 3rd round for the Patriots last year. All you heard about left and right was Damian Harris. Oh, my God, he's amazing. He's going to be the lead back. He catches everything. He does this. He does that. This was all last year. Do you guys know how many snaps and how many games he dressed for last year?
Like 0.
Okay, so what do we hear all this preseason? Damian Harris, oh, my God, he's amazing. Look at this. Look at that. Look at this. And then he breaks his pinky finger on his non-dominant hand, and he's out for 3 to 4 weeks. All of a sudden just happens to be right before the regular season. I'm sorry. I don't know what the Patriots media tries to get us hyped up about these random people. And I'm talking Patriots media as in the ones that go on 93.7 and 98.5 that like, this guy looked good, this guy did. All they do is take the random scrub that the Patriots are trying to get a draft pick in the trade for, boost the hell out of him, hope someone buys in and gives him a 6th-round pick, and then they go on to the next guy. Outside of that, I think
is that why the Bruins are going to be hyping Tuukka Rask all offseason?
I mean, probably. But I think other than that, I think the Patriots will be fine. Brian, you mentioned it. The division is still awful. The Jets and the Dolphins are still going to maybe win 4 games combined. Are the Bills going to be difficult? Sure. But you guys know me. I hate Josh Allen with a passion. So
they still can't score. They just can't score. I mean, their defense is probably going to be a little better, but they still can't score the ball. So if you can score 18 points against them, you're going to win.
And I think, Dan, you mentioned the big thing, right? Obviously, betting week 1 is very difficult because you don't know this and that. You don't know what changes. But I look at the teams that haven't made a lot of changes, right? So I know it's easy to say, but the Chiefs really re-signed all their major pieces. They added a rookie running back who supposedly just stepped right in and fit in fine. But other than that, they're relatively the same team, right? Baltimore's defense has changed a lot. We didn't really talk about the whole Earl Thomas thing, which is just mind-boggling to me. But I don't know if defensively they'll be able to hold up to a team running the football however many times, 40 times a game like they do.
Now, what are you talking about with Earl Thomas? What's the story there?
Oh, supposedly he beat up a teammate because a culmination of reasons, but his play in the field, he wasn't doing what he was supposed to, so he beat the crap out of him in the locker room, allegedly.
Well, it's just like that idiot on the Chiefs who, beats his girlfriend or whatever. I mean, it's just a matter of time before he gets in trouble again.
Oh, yeah.
The receiver there.
Tyreek, yeah.
Yeah, but I mean, it's like the NBA, not talking about China. It's like it's the thing that nobody wants to talk about. A lot of these guys are lunatics, but because they can score touchdowns, it's okay. but eventually it will catch up to any of these guys. And I mean, that team's so fragile. You take that receiver away from the Chiefs, and then they're beatable. It's kind of like going into the series of Toronto. I thought, well, Kyle Lowry, if he doesn't play, it kind of neutralizes the Gordon Hayward effect. But as we saw these past 2 games, it really hasn't made a difference.
In the last team, two teams I'm intrigued in, I should say. One, make it or break it year for Dallas. Dak will play on the franchise tag. If they don't – what was that then?
And don't we say that every year about Dallas?
Yes, but I honestly feel this year, if they don't at least make it to the NFC title game, I don't think Dak comes back. I wouldn't be shocked if Amari doesn't come back and they trade him in some way. I think the only piece that is relatively untradeable is Zeke, because running backs are so undervalued nowadays. Or you either draft a good one and pay him, or you just deal with what you got. And then the other is Brian's team, the Raiders, right? Obviously moving to a new city. You just lost your number 1, so you're dealing with 2 rookies out there. And who knows what Carr is going to be, right? So you have one population, and I think I'm in this one, that Carr, when healthy, is a good quarterback. He's not Tom Brady, Drew Brees, Pat Mahomes, but he's a good quarterback. And then you have the other population that's like, well, I don't know if Derek Carr is going to throw for 50 yards or 50 interceptions. It's like, I don't get the split on him, but I think the Raiders could make a playoff run this year.
Well, what they did was, Matt, they get a bunch of speed guys, so the pressure's off Carr. You can 1, 2, you can chuck it, and then these guys are going to be able to, when you get a bunch of guys that run under 4-5, they're the ones that are going to make it look like it's a 13 or 15-yard, catch, when in all honesty it was a 5-yard catch, and then the guy ran for 10 yards. The number 1 you're talking about, I'm guessing you're talking about the cornerback that got hurt at Ohio State?
Well, so I know Arnett got hurt, but yeah, Tyrell Williams, torn labrum or whatever.
Oh, I'm talking about, he has a torn labrum, and they put him in the IR. And then the cornerback from Ohio State, he broke his wrist or something, but I guess he played with a broken wrist last year as well. So he's just a tough guy. They're going to be okay. But it really depends how mile high, Denver's going to be, if the players are actually going to show up this year, how San Diego's going to be. And Kansas City is going to win the division. That's a no-brainer. And it's just a matter of who comes in second place. But with the way the wild cards are, they got a shot. But you never know. I mean, they're going to be a fun team to watch. They're going to be fast at least. So. But something I want to ask you guys about, just switching gears a little bit. Dan, did you hear about the Steve Nash hiring today?
I just saw the headline.
So ESPN decided to make it this big thing about, black coaches not getting an opportunity. And then Richard Jefferson, who I can't stand because he was on the Nets, is like, well, what about Jason Kidd? And what about this guy? And what about that guy? And what about that guy? And Steve Nash was like, oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, they did get opportunities. So it was just kind of basically the end of the argument basically was that no matter who you are, whether you're black or white in the NBA, a lot of people are getting chances to coach, where these other guys, these career college guys who actually know the game really well and make better assistants and end up becoming really good head coaches, don't get a chance. And then basically the story and the end game was, well, no one's going to be talking about the Nets anyway, because everybody wants to know why, Thibodeau was playing all his rookies 40 minutes a game anyway for the Knicks. So, I mean, that's going to be the bigger story. But what do you think about, Nash kind of being the coach for Kyrie and Durant?
It's probably good to have a name like Steve Nash, who obviously, is a Hall of Fame player, multiple MVPs.
Okay.
That deal with the kind of egos that are on that Nets team.
Okay, but isn't Steve Nash kind of an alpha anyway? I mean, do you really think he can deal with them, or? I mean, it's kind of like they kind of need a little bitch as a coach. They need Tyronn Lue or somebody to just be like, okay, whatever you want, guys.
But Nash and not only is he's a Hall of Famer, but he was a point guard. So
right.
he's used,
which a lot of coaches are.
I mean, we'll see what happens, but
yeah.
I mean, why not?
I think if they were really serious, they wouldn't have kept the guy they had, because they built a culture there where they really had absolutely nothing talent-wise, and they actually made a good team in the Nets. I mean, the Nets, you think about how we fleeced them with the Celtics deal, and they slowly, got second-round picks, kind of like how the Celtics did about 10 years ago, and made them into them. I think they won, was it 50 games last year almost, or pretty damn close, with not a lot of talent. And they kind of had, Kyrie and Durant went there because they like the atmosphere over there and the pedigree. And then the first thing they do is they get rid of the coach, which kind of killed a lot of their credibility. But I guess that they did call Greg Popovich, which I think that would have been awesome for them. Because, I mean, he doesn't take any BS from anybody. I mean, I don't like the guy, but he doesn't take any BS from his players. And I think what happened was, he asked the Nets ownership, well, who's in charge, me or them? And they said, oh, well, of course Durant. He just hung up the phone because he's like, I'm not going to deal with those guys because he doesn't have to. He already has his resume intact. He doesn't need any BS to deal with.
Yeah.
I was very shocked, right? So Steve Nash, obviously no one is going to argue what he did as a player, right? His last paying gig was as a analyst for European soccer for TNT. Does this really sound like a guy that's ready to step in and be the head coach, two of the biggest head cases the NBA's seen in the last 50 years?
Yeah, I mean, it is a real random choice to pick him. I mean, there's guys like Elvin Gentry out there. There's, Nate McMillan. There's other coaches that are decent coaches, and I don't know if Kyrie Irving was just like watching Steve Nash highlights at 3 a.m. When he's trying to figure where the edge of the earth was. He was like, he'd be a good coach.
So
it just seems so random.
That'll happen when superstar players want to be head coaches. They're able to literally just be hired without any kind of a background in coaching. That's all right away. They're a head coach. That only happens with superstars.
In my mind,
but do you think that? I don't think it makes them a better team.
No,
I mean,
because
do you think Steve Nash is going to be like a D'Antoni coach, where he's going to have each guy take 53s a game, and nobody knows what his coaching style is either?
No,
he's going to have to get a veteran assistant.
He's just going to go out there. He's going to say, Kyrie and KD, do whatever the hell you want. It is what it is, and go try to win games. He's going to get fired in 2 years because the team hasn't made an Eastern Conference Finals. And then people are going to be like, oh, it was a failed attempt, but he's still Steve Nash. No, you knew this from the beginning. You were just looking for a scapegoat the same way they have Frank Vogel out in LA right now. So when they don't make it, they don't win the title this year, you can fire him and put Jason Kidd in charge. That's all he is.
Outside of getting Anthony Davis to join them when the Lakers dumpster fire doesn't work out this year in the playoffs, do they have any chance of beating the Celtics next year?
Who, the Nets?
Yeah.
I mean, with Kevin Durant, you always have a chance.
I'm gonna say
but I mean, talent-wise, they got two superstars and a bunch of
TBD, but yeah, TBD. But like Matt said, you when you've got Durant, you've at least got a chance.
Right.
All right, I think that's it. Is there any? And does anyone want to say anything about the Red Sox?
Oh my God, get Jackie Bradley Jr. off this team. He doesn't want to be here. No one in Boston really cares about his 200 batting average and above average defense. No one cares that your defense.
The socially conscious Red Sox cannot trade their only black player.
Jackie
in
in an interview yesterday said that his defense isn't able to be put on full par because the dimensions of left field at Fenway hinder his ability to show off his defense. I'm sorry, what?
He can use that as an excuse when he leaves as a free agent. Now, if they offer him arbitration, he'll probably accept it because he'll get $15 million qualifying offer. Just let him go.
And I really hope my roommates can hear this because he's a big Jackie Bradley Jr. fan, but I don't understand how he is still here. I don't get why he's getting $11 million.
I told you, it's the white guilt. They don't want to let him go.
Also, it was just really incredible to watch their trading deadline where they were like, oh, the Red Sox traded this player for these prospects. I'm like, it's not great when I've heard of the prospects and not the pitcher we got rid of. That was kind of funny to me.
You don't like starting a guy who hasn't pitched in the major leagues in 6 years?
I don't know. I haven't watched a Sox game since like the first week. I don't know.
Yeah, I haven't watched it.
You're going to miss all these Bobby Dalbac strikeouts.
Ben Tendy still on the team?
He's on the IR. He got hurt at the barber.
Okay.
All right, I think that's it. Next week we'll do a full-fledged NFL preview. What do you say? And hopefully maybe the Celtics will have swept. We'll see.
I got my fingers crossed. I know the Bruins aren't going to sweep.
I mean, there's a small chance that the Western Conference semis might even start by then. Who knows?
Yeah, I like the way that they just game day off. Love it.
Absolutely.
All right, that's it. For Maddie and Brian, I'm Dan. Spin the damn music. We'll talk to you soon.